have you shot your final scenes yet? And are you happy with how things ended? Yes. She didn't say yes.
Best season ever!
Oh, we are gonna have some fun today, boys and girls. Welcome back to my series covering in depth all the remaining episodes of Game of Thrones Season 8 and the slow motion career car crash of Dumb and Fucking Dumber. I know I still can't decide who is dumber between these two fucktards. Maybe I'll do a community poll, or you can tell me in the comments. Let's play a little game. Anyway, I have a short introduction to get through, followed by a short rant concerning certain characters, and then finally we shall Ramsay Bolton the fuck out of episode 5. So if you'd like to skip to the episode 5 review, go to the time on screen now. Okay, so firstly, regarding Dumb and Dumber, I've gotten so many lovely comments from all of you telling me how much you like the name I have given them and how it was absolutely nailed. Honestly, when I was angry at episode 3 of season 8, it just rolled so swiftly off the tongue. I mean, seriously, what else would you associate these two jackasses with at this point? Maybe dingus and dipshit, but I digress. Anyway, it might actually surprise you to know that I wasn't the first to call them that.
I know, right?
Yeah, no, seriously, it turns out this man, Black Goat of Quor, the Black Goat. Anyway, he has been taking the fight to Dumb and Dumber since before my channel even started. Because as I said in an earlier video, my channel started months after Season 7 finished. Now, we've had a chat, me and Black Goat, and everything's cool, and I'm going to keep calling Dumb and Dumber, well, Dumb and Dumber, because at this point it's factual and I'm nothing if not consistent. But he's a great channel, and he told me that the original founders of the meme are the channel called Order of the Green Hand, a couple who run a very well-informed Song of Ice and Fire channel. Now, I will link these channels below for you. Definitely check them out, since I'm still undecided of whether or not I'll be continuing very much Game of Thrones content after Season 8 is finished.
One day I won't be here, and I need you to carry on in my place. You are part of the great circle of
life. I know.
I hope you find them well, and also remember to check out The Dragon Demands. Excellent channel, probably the most well-informed channel on how Stannis was butchered and why Benioff is a hack. Link will also be below. Now, that includes the short introduction, so let's get on to all the characters that Dumb and Dumber have fucked up. Now, honestly, there's too many to choose from, so I'm just going to go with these few. Let's get on to Rhaegal's bullshit death, where Euron no-scoped that motherfucker out of the sky 3 consecutive times without missing. Now, it took a while for this to sink in for me, but Rhaegal has been a character since Season 2. And Dumb and Dumber basically bullshit him off the show in order to nerf Daenerys' army so that she could have a balanced fight with Cersei. And they couldn't be fucked thinking of a clever way to take it out, so they literally tried to pass off Euron's 3 consecutive 1 in a million shots as clever fucking subversion. Get fucked. Now, I'm sure you've all seen a wonderful little video called Danny Forgot About the Iron Fleet with David, I wrote X-Men Origins Wolverine Benioff. I really liked that video and thought it had a lot of insight. Now, sadly, I've had to reference a reaction to that video since as of writing this, the original video has been taken down, sadly. Can't imagine why. Now, the original account is a guy called Clan Gaffney. So Clan Gaffney, if you're watching this, send me a message on Twitter. Huge fan of your work. And what HBO likely did to you wasn't right at all. So thank you for that video. Now, Clan Gaffney goes through every reason why Daenerys shouldn't have forgotten everything that Euron had done to her. But today we are going to look at the other side of that coin, because it turns out that Daenerys has a very good fucking memory indeed. Let's go through a short list. She remembers events and people from decades ago. So why would she forget about Euron fucking Greyjoy exactly? I mean, she remembers that Varys had a hand in her attempted assassination as a child.
You served my father, didn't you, Lord Beerus?
I did.
And then you served the man who overthrew him. But you didn't serve him long. You turned against him.
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces, they certainly haven't forgotten about her.
She remembers Gendry's fucking name somehow, a bastard she's never met formally, a commoner who spends all his time in the Smiths, where a queen would never fucking go.
Gendry. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, Your Grace.
You're Robert Baratheon's son. You are aware he took my family's throne and tried to have me murdered.
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces, they certainly haven't forgotten about her.
Is she retarded?
And she remembers Jaime fucking Lannister killed her dad 20 years ago.
When I was a child, my brother would tell me a bedtime story about the man who murdered our father, who stabbed him in the back and cut his throat, who sat down on the Iron Throne and watched as his blood poured onto the floor. He told me other stories as well, about all the things we would do to that man.
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces, they certainly haven't forgotten about her.
Oh, now I get it. She's a moron. But a moron with large breasts you can use as mountains for your matchbox cars or whatever it is grown-ups do with large breasts.
But not to mention, in that very same scene with Jaime, he says this.
She has Euron Greyjoy's fleet and 20,000 fresh troops. The Golden Company from Essos, bought and paid for. Even if we defeat the dead, she'll have more than enough to destroy the survivors.
While Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet and Euron's forces, they certainly haven't forgotten about her.
So yeah, I call bullshit, but then again, we all did. But maybe Dany's sudden miraculous loss of memory was caused by Euron fucking Greyjoy himself, since the man is pretty much a fucking magician. He's probably the biggest Gary Stu in this entire show. His only growth as a character is when he has to summon the patience to wait approximately 30 seconds for Cersei's thighs to moisten, since she's been deprived of brotherly love for all of about a month at this point.
You want a whore, buy one. You want a queen, earn her.
My heart is nearly broken.
Now, speaking of Euron's lack of nerve, let's assess this fucker's superpowers, shall we? He can teleport. He has the greatest fucking aim in all of fiction. And he can build 1,000 ships in a week.
Build me 1,000 ships, and I will give you this world.
Also, this isn't really a superpower, but it's been on my nerves ever since this fucker showed up on screen. Why the hell does Euron have resting rape face? Oh well, maybe it's explained in the books. Now, Euron would be the worst written character in the entire show if he didn't kill those fucking sand sluts and saved us from that god-awful Dawn plot. They see me rolling. Thank you, Euron. Next up, let's talk about Bran.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Oh, okay, bye, Bran. Stay useless, you bland piece of dog shit. Yeah, that's pretty much all we got to say about Bran. He speaks for himself by not speaking. Unless, of course, he has something to say when the time is right, or when the writers need something. Just chooses not to say anything in the middle of a fucking battle that's going to decide the fate of the world, I guess. And now we get on to Jon, the latest in a series of butchered characters. Not only was his entire prophecy stolen from him, when Arya bullshits her way to the Night King during the long night of dumbassery.
Just didn't seem right to us for this moment.
If you could describe the season finale of Game of Thrones in one word, how would you describe it?
Disappointing.
But he commits the cardinal sin of not farewelling his boy Ghost, who you know he's been pretty much inseparable from for at least a decade at this point.
We're in Seven Hells. Come here. I missed you, boy.
I guess once you go dragon, you never go back, right, Johnny boy? At least that's the Dumb and Dumber philosophy, because consistency is a fucking fairy tale to them. And that, I think, covers all of the character bullshit of Season 8. That is, if you don't count Sam being a little bitch.
Oh, Pip, open the fucking gate! Sam, get up!
Oh, Sam, you dogged the boys, mate. Ed was right to leave you behind in the snow.
When the White Walkers came, you left me.
We left you. You're fat and you're slow. We didn't want to die.
Can't believe he died for you.
Light the fuckers up!
Right, got that off my chest. Let's get on to episode 5, shall we? Now let me get the positives out of the way first. This episode was definitely better than episode 3 of season 8, and what I mean by that is I could actually see what the fuck was happening. It was very well shot. I'm a sucker for tracking shots. Just about every scene with Arya was pulse pounding in terms of how it was filmed. Emilia Clarke's acting was once again really good. She looked to be in real pain while grieving for Missandei, and when the sacking of King's Landing was taking place, and when it pans to her face, she looks to be drunk with power and full of vengeance. Now we are going to come back to that because it's the most retarded subversion moment I've ever seen, which officially surpasses the Rian Johnson level of what the fuck are you doing? But as far as the acting goes, Emilia Clarke continues to shine in this season. It's just a shame that this is the only season. The Jaime and Tyrion scene was probably one of my favourites in the entire series. Peter Dinklage and Nikolai Coster-Waldau were phenomenal. These are two characters I was still very much invested in, and this scene was consistent and true for both characters. And one final scene that I liked as a moment between two characters was the farewell between Arya and the Hound. I can appreciate what they were going for in terms of the Hound wanting to save Arya from her probable death, and that she should turn away from her path of vengeance so as not to become like the Hound. And then Arya calls him Sandor, and finally acknowledges his goodness. That was a satisfying conclusion for the arc of both of those characters towards one another. But it comes at the cost of Arya's true arc, which is what the 8 seasons were building to. Regardless of how you feel about Arya killing the Night King, I agree as much as the next person that it was a very fucking stupid decision made solely for subversion purposes. But that's the fault of Dumb and Dumber, not Arya Stark. Arya was always set up to kill the Queen. Queen Cersei, and they couldn't even deliver that fucking payoff. It would have given some satisfaction to her 8 years of build-up, but it turns out no. She killed an enemy who had nothing to do with her arc. And then she says, yeah, nah, to someone she's wanted to kill for 8 seasons. Someone whose name she's mouthed off every night before she goes to bed for 8 seasons. But that aside, to paint with a very broad stroke here, the only, and I mean the only, good things about this episode had nothing to do with the writers. It was to do with the director, the cinematographer, and the actors. And that's it. Those are the only positives. Now, it's time to bend these fuckers over and get to work. Let's start at the very beginning. First of all, to show just how much, or rather just how little, Dumb and Dumber and HBO give a shit about this episode, they managed to somehow leak spoilers for the last 3 episodes of Season 8 of their prized flagship show ahead of time, and 90%, if not all of the leaks for this episode turned out to be correct. The leaks didn't specify just how retarded the execution would be, however. We start off at Dragonstone, and predictably it begins with Varys, who is the first on the chopping block. He's writing a message about the true heir to the Iron Throne, that of course being Jon Snow. This scene begins in the afternoon by the looks of it, and it shows Varys be kind and compassionate to one of his little birds. Now, even without the spoiler leaks, red fucking flag. In the entire 8 seasons, we have never seen Varys interact with one of his child spies. In classic Walking Dead and Dumb and Dumber fashion, it's a last-minute attempt to make you care about Varys. First off, you dipshits, we didn't need that. Varys is probably the purest man in a position of power, someone who always puts the greater good above his loyalties, not to mention he saved Tyrion and Daenerys up to this point. He was kind to Ned Stark in his final days, and we have had 8 seasons to flush him out. We were already invested, but no, we gotta see him be nice to a child in case you aren't subverted enough for later. Anyway, he writes the letter for Jon Snow, and then Jon Snow lands at Dragonstone, and Varys teleports to the beach to greet him, and then he tells him pretty much as plainly as anyone could, I know you're king. Please be king. Come on, Dumb and Dumber. He's on Daenerys' fucking island surrounded by her guards, and he walks right up to Jon in plain view of everyone and breathes his secret. Varys is one of the most cunning people alive. Wouldn't he get the fuck out of Dragonstone before committing treason? And Jon, despite being raised by Ned fucking Stark, continues to be Daenerys' whipping boy with fewer testicles than Theon fucking Greyjoy had. And he's like, she's my queen. I love her. Why? Why do you love her? She's a stubborn, entitled bitch, and she has been from day one. People always flocked unconditionally to Daenerys despite being one of the most unlikable characters on the show. Boy, do I miss Ygritte. At least she was down to earth and likable. Anyway, Tyrion forgets that Varys saved his life and always thinks of the greater good instead of furthering his own interests and the interest of power-hungry dragon bimbos. So he casually rats out his best friend to Daenerys, saying that he committed treason. Tyrion. Fucking Tyrion, one of the smartest people in all of Westeros, still backs Daenerys despite, in the previous episode, assuring Cersei that the city will burn if she doesn't surrender, and after Cersei killed Daenerys' best friend. Yeah, Varys is a traitor, but you're still gonna just rock up on your dragon and ask politely, right? Remember, he sided with Daenerys before she lied to Tyrion about allowing the city to live. Not to mention, how is telling people of Jon's true birth treason exactly? Jon is the true heir. Doesn't matter if he wants it or not, it's not treason, it's a fact. Let's pretend that Tyrion didn't rat Varys out, and Varys squealed the truth. What the fuck is the worst that could have happened? Best case scenario, Jon and Daenerys rule together as husband and wife, or Jon publicly steps down as king after the battle is won and Daenerys is queen. How does everyone knowing Jon's lineage turn out bad for everyone exactly? Not to mention Varys has always known what's best for the greater good, but nah, Varys is a traitor. Let's feed him to the dragons, my queen. Get fucked, Dumb and Dumber, as if Tyrion would do this. Daenerys gave Tyrion a fucking badge. Varys saved his fucking life. And Varys has no selfish agenda. Way to further ruin who Tyrion is as a character. So Varys is still writing the same letter about Jon's lineage on the same piece of paper, despite it transitioning to nighttime now. How slow does the spy master of Westeros write a letter exactly? And again, what the fuck is he still doing? He's still there on Daenerys' island writing a treasonous letter. Anyway, Grey Worm shows up, retrieves him for execution, and Varys casually cooperates without trial, without any reasoning, and without any pleas of mercy from Tyrion on Varys' behalf. Varys is sentenced to death for, again, treason. Not only that, but Jon, being the whipped little bitch that he is just standing there and watches this all transpire with zero objection. And Tyrion just walks up to Varys and tells him, yeah, sorry, bro. And then Varys is like, yeah, it's all good, mate. What the fuck, writers? You're fucking kidding me. These two have been good friends ever since season 2. And this is the best you could do. Because that's pathetic and nonsensical crap. And then it's pitch black, and somehow fucking Drogon has just been standing behind Daenerys this whole time, quiet as a fucking mouse, because they had to squeeze that last fucking subversion in there before Varys' incredibly casual and disappointing death. And then Dany wants Jon to reward her madness with incest. And then Jon tells her, I love you. And then Daenerys tries to rape him, and Jon tells her no means no, and then Daenerys tells him to fuck off. Then Daenerys asks Grey Worm to ready the men at the gates of King's Landing, and that they will know when the signal is. And then Tyrion tells her, if they ring the bells, they surrender. Please stop attacking if you hear the bells. And Daenerys agrees before telling him that if Tyrion fails her again, it will be for the last time. Okay, so now they're ripping off Empire Strikes Back, for fuck's sake. She also tells Tyrion that Jaime was trying to get back to Cersei and was captured and imprisoned. Now, after watching this episode, I want to ask those people who told me I was wrong about Dumb and Dumber ruining Jaime's character development by making him return to King's Landing for incest, still think I was lying about that? Because this episode is proof that I was right. Because yeah, he was going back there, but not to kill her, but to, for lack of a better term, fuck his sister one more time. Despite one of Jaime's biggest moments of character development came at the end of Season 7 when he freed himself from that monster, for fuck's sake. Do Dumb and Dumber have fucking Alzheimer's or something? How the fuck could you forget that Jaime's entire arc was about redemption, you fucktards? And why the fuck was he not killed on sight instead of being imprisoned? A small scene would have been nice instead of hard cutting to Jaime in chains. Anyway, Tyrion tries to orchestrate one last mercy for his brother and sister, telling Davos to smuggle a dinghy for Jaime and Cersei, despite King's Landing being on high alert and prepping for a siege. But nah, Davos is a magician, so fuck it, he can do anything. Tyrion has a very well-executed goodbye with Jaime, as previously discussed, and he tells Jaime to save the citizens of King's Landing by ringing the bells first and foremost. Saving thousands of innocents is more important than saving one not-so-innocent dwarf. Tyrion says this, knowing that he will likely be executed for treason after he goes through with this. Like I said, the only good scene in the entire fucking episode. Then it cuts to Arya Stark and the Hound, who walk straight up to King's Landing and announce their true identities and say, "We are going to kill the Queen." What? Okay, so how or why would the guards let them through if the city is meant to be locked down? Also, even if it was bannermen of Daenerys or Jon, why the fuck would they be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever"? This is so fucked. She is a young girl, for goodness sake, and the Hound, for all they know, could be a traitor. I don't care what excuse people come up with for this. It's still retarded. After this, dawn breaks on King's Landing and the troops amass outside the city gates. The Golden Company and the Unsullied, Dothraki, and the Northerners all rally and prepare for the battle, waiting for the signal from Daenerys. Cersei perches herself on the balcony of the Red Keep for a perfect view of what's to come. Euron positions himself on his flagship, waiting for the arrival of the Dragon Queen, before the cries of Drogon can be heard in the clouds and the wrath of Daenerys Targaryen falls down upon them. Then Euron and his dozens of ships all fire scorpion bolts at Drogon, and they all miss. Every single one of them. And then Daenerys single-handedly obliterates the Iron Fleet. Are you fucking kidding me? So one scorpion can kill Rhaegal miles away with 3 consecutive shots. Bronn can knock Drogon out of the sky with 1 bolt as it's flying towards him with a downgraded scorpion from the ones that these guys are using, but dozens of scorpion bolts fucking miss as she flies towards them? This show is so fucking stupid. Daenerys' plot armor is thicker than the mountain's dick. Not to mention 1 dragon to kill all of Euron's ships? Remind me again why she didn't circle the fuck around at Dragonstone and do exactly fucking this instead of just abandoning her fleet to slaughter? Yeah, by the way, Tyrion, Daenerys almost let you die last episode when she flew away on her fucking dragon. Did you forget that? No, it's Varys who's the traitor. Die! And Euron, predictable as fuck, just teleports away. We will get back to him later, but just one thing. Why wasn't Euron, the Bowmaster of King's Landing, manning one of those scorpions? Would I be wrong in assuming if Euron was on the scorpion, Daenerys would have been fucked? This motherfucker can hit anything, especially queens. But yeah, Daenerys, now using just 1 of her dragons, is able to destroy the Iron Fleet before doing the same with the rest of the King's Landing defenses and blowing up the gates of King's Landing, obliterating much of the very much hyped Golden Company, which is the signal for her ground troops to move into the city and kill all in their path, before perching herself on the King's Landing wall and watching the battle ensue, while Jon and the ground forces slaughter the rest of the Golden Company before beginning to fight the Lannisters. Now, one would think that Dany would end this battle right now and just fly to the Red Keep and blow it up, killing Cersei and liberating the people who have lived under a tyrant, staying true to her title as the Breaker of Chains, a title that Missandei wouldn't shut the fuck up about from the past 4 fucking seasons. But we shall return to Dany in a moment. Jon and Grey Worm fight through the main streets of King's Landing, where the Lannisters are standing preparing for the imminent battle. But the looks on their faces show that they know that they are outmatched. There's no way that they are going to win. And the Lannisters use a wonderful little concept that Dumb and Dumber are frankly oblivious to, and it's called logic. The Lannisters lay down their weapons and sound the bells, issuing a formal surrender and plea of mercy. They have lost. No more wish to die. And they don't want the city full of innocents to die as well. Jon sheaths his sword, and the combined ground forces halt their attack. The battle is won. Cersei has lost, and Daenerys has won the Iron Throne. Until the dumbest fucking writing decision in the history of mankind was made. For the record, it was made by Dumb and Dumber on Game of Thrones, Episode 5, Season 8. A decision that tells both long-time lovers of the show, as well as casual watchers, and especially feminists who have defended Dany and her actions for the past decade, and some who have even named their kids after her, it tells them all to go fuck themselves. Instead of having her forces take the Lannisters prisoner, instead of sending her forces to the Red Keep to imprison or kill Cersei, instead of flying to the Red Keep her fucking self and blowing that cursed building the fuck up, Daenerys, for no good reason other than fucking subversion, gets on her dragon and for shits and gigs proceeds to massacre hundreds of thousands of men, women and children and babies, little fucking babies. I don't even think this deserves to be called subversion. This is just plain disgusting on the writer's behalf and insulting to the audience. I wholeheartedly think this is the worst writing decision in the history of television and film, at least the ones that I've seen in recent years. I used to think it was Iron Man 3, and then I wholeheartedly believed it was Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, but honestly, I'm not even a fan of Daenerys, and I still consider this to be the worst writing decision ever made. Let's go through how this could have been handled appropriately. If Dany began her attack killing everything until the city surrendered, I could somewhat understand her actions. She came there to conquer, she came there for war, and innocents die in war. It's regrettable, but in her eyes, she did what was necessary to ascend to the throne in order to build a better future with the power of the throne. But in this scenario, the writers make the bad guys surrender and then tell Daenerys to start slaughtering innocents for absolutely no reason, other than she can. This gains her absolutely nothing. It actually damages her claim to the throne even more, since no Westerosi houses will want anything to do with her now. It destroys everything she's worked so hard to save, as the breaker of chains, not to mention there's no more fucking throne to sit on. And sadly, Daenerys was an icon and role model for many people in the world. I personally didn't like her character since Season 3, but there are many people who did, and honestly my heart goes out to those people. Apparently some people have gone as far as to name their children after her. And now somehow the writers have completely butchered any redeemable qualities her character had left. She's a self-entitled mass murderer with a dragon, that's it. And with no motivation to do so whatsoever, does exactly what her character wouldn't do. All for the sake of two dumb fuck retarded writers who wanted to shock their audience and nothing more. I've known both of these cunts were hacks ever since Season 5, but they exceeded my expectations with flying colours for just how fucking bad at writing they truly are. Sadly, there's more to discuss. While Daenerys Targaryen, the breaker of chains, is burning thousands of people who have just surrendered instead of blowing up the Red Keep immediately, Grey Worm resumes attacking the Lannisters. Jon says, nah, I don't think so, mate, and then after one soldier takes a swing at him, he's like, yeah, okay, fuck it, alright, and then continues to slaughter surrendered soldiers. By the way, the writers wanted to show us the civilians' perspective as the carnage ensued, while Daenerys burned them all alive. You want to know what I was like through every scene after Dumb and Dumber decided to ruin Daenerys? It was this.
No! Dude! No fucking way!
Once you made Daenerys do something so monumentally stupid as that, all investment and immersion was gone, you fucking retards. You can't make us care after you've spat in our faces. Anyway, we cut back to Jaime, who's approaching the Red Keep via secret passageway, and Euron fucking Greyjoy instant transmissions to his exact position. At the exact time he's about to enter the tunnel, so that they can have a final fucking battle. This makes no fucking sense. How is Euron even alive? And why would he care about a confrontation with Jaime? And how the fuck did he even know about the passage in the first place? Euron struggles against one-armed Jaime after he decimated the Sand Snakes and was OP as fuck in Season 7, but Jaime is who he has trouble with. He mortally wounds Jaime and doesn't finish him off, allowing for Jaime to grab a sword and easily drive a killing blow into Euron's stomach. And then Euron laughs himself to death, shouting, "I killed Jaime Lannister!" No one's gonna know, you fucking tard. Then we cut back to the Red Keep, as now finally Daenerys grew a fucking brain and has decided to attack that instead of killing every single innocent person in the city. The keep begins to collapse as Arya and the Hound approach. Like I said before, the culmination of their arc was satisfying subjectively, but it's written so nonsensically that it's hard to take seriously. The Hound tells Arya to go away and not to pursue the path of revenge, and then Arya just does it, despite the fact that she killed the entire Frey family, killed Meryn Trant, killed Rouge, killed Lannister soldiers, killed Littlefinger, the Waif, and the Night King. When it comes to the person who's highest on her list, she's like, yeah, cool. I'm at her front door, but I'll just abandon my life's work right here and now. Speaking of which, why the fuck does the Hound tell her this to go home once they've already made it to the Red fucking Keep? Now, the real reason behind this is because the show writers need Arya to be in King's Landing as a POV character to watch the carnage, hoping you smart-minded viewers would actually give a shit. I'm not even fucking kidding. That's the only reason they did it.
Feels like you needed a perspective to carry you through this horror. Like,
the reason we decided to follow Arya out of King's Landing and to see the fall of King's Landing through her eyes is something that we talked about with an earlier episode. It wouldn't have had much of an emotional impact, but when you're there on the ground with Arya, who's one of the people we care the most about, then everything takes on that much more of an edge.
And that is why it was so jarring. I mean, she's at the Red Keep and then she turns away from her destiny. Setting aside the fact that they ruined another payoff, this is a stupid reason to force in this scene at that particular time. Now we finally get the Clegane Bowl. First of all, I'm docking points for it not taking place in a courtyard full of chickens. And secondly, this moment was so fucking forced. And we all know it. Like, it's very clear that Dumb and Dumber were listening to the memes and wanted to fucking profit off it. This was simply a box that needed to be ticked. Not to mention, 2 retarded laugh out loud moments. The first being Qyburn's death.
Obey your queen, Sir Gregor.
Yeah, so the Mountain is subservient until he sees the Hound, and then he kills the guy who made him? What the fuck? Not to mention how retarded the death looked. The writers actually wanted us to gasp in terror. And then we have the beautiful choreography. Hound, I have to ask you, did you learn nothing from Infinity War?
You should have gone for the head.
Yeah, that was Dumb and Dumber trying to build fake tension by making the Hound retarded. One positive I'd like to give the scene is the poetry of Hound killing both himself and his brother in a death by fire. His hatred of his brother trumps his fear of fire, fair enough. Except he didn't know he was going to land in the fire, not to mention the road to his brother had no fire to begin with. Now we are going to go back to Jaime, who has found his way to Cersei and tries to lead her out of the Red Keep and to safety per Tyrion's instructions. Now again, the acting is on point, but since one of those characters is fucking Cersei, and given that Jaime disregarded his whole redemption arc, it was pretty hard for me to give a shit when they were staring into each other's eyes for the last time. Not to mention, did no one find that to be anticlimactic? Poetic for sure, but like I said, Arya's arc was all about killing the Queen, but I guess it just didn't seem right to Dumb and Dumber, as they've so lovingly said so in the past. Fuck you. Hell, even if Daenerys killed Cersei, that would have been some kind of payoff. It's like Daenerys literally went out of her way to kill only innocents because the one person she wanted to kill more than anything slipped through her grasp. You could argue that Dany killed her by collapsing the Red Keep, but still, terrible execution in terms of making it satisfying for the viewer. After another 20 or so minutes, Jon only then decides to call back his bannermen in order to stop fighting and contributing to the violence, ordering them to exit the city. Jon, it's a little late for that, mate. You've actively contributed to the sacking and massacre of the city. You should have attacked the Unsullied, or hell, just stopped fucking shit up with your men immediately. We cut back to Arya, who's getting trampled by old ladies and then tries to save her mother and her child, while Dumb and Dumber rip off the Hobbit Battle of the Five Armies by portraying Drogon exactly how Peter Jackson portrayed Smaug in that movie. Seriously, you couldn't even make the Slaughter of King's Landing original? Seriously? You fucking hacks. And yeah, Arya sees another child get burnt alive and Dumb and Dumber expect us to care. Then she gets covered in flames, but somehow does not die. I forgot that this is Arya Stark, the woman who fucking transcends dragons and White Walkers. Love the character, hate her fucking writers. She wakes up covered in ash, perfectly fine on the streets of King's Landing, now lying in ruin. As Daenerys realized the vibrator is a more sensible way to relieve stress and decided to fly away. Arya walks through the ruins to find a random horse just walking through the ruined streets completely unharmed, and Arya walks up to the horse and pets it. I have been told that this is the horse that belonged to the Hound. Unfortunately, the Hound is dead, so who fucking gives a shit? And how did a horse, a gigantic moving target, stay alive during this slaughterhouse? Maybe there's a theme I'm missing that some Dumb and Dumber apologists will tell me I'm missing as they try to inevitably defend this abortion in the comments section. And then Arya exits King's Landing on horseback, and the episode, the second last episode in this almost decade-old series, is over. What an absolute fucking disaster. This episode was a horror show, not from a visual standpoint, but from a writing standpoint. Bad writing breaks immersion, so I didn't give a fuck about the burning civilians because it was impossible to take seriously. Bad writing ruins characters. Not only did you ruin Daenerys Targaryen with what little there was left to ruin, but you also ruined many other characters in doing so. Grey Worm is now a murderer. Jorah Mormont fell in love and died for a psychopath. Barristan Selmy died serving a psychopath and a murderer. Tyrion sided with a psychopath instead of his best friend. Tyrion is responsible for enabling Daenerys and having the domino effect that destroyed King's Landing. Jon fell in love with a psychopath in the most forced television romance ever and bent the knee so easily to this psychopath and refused to acknowledge his birthright by instead serving this psychopath who committed mass murder. Cersei, as bad as she was, is now the lesser of two evils. Daenerys liberated Yunkai, Astapor, and Meereen, saving hundreds of thousands of slaves, only to kill just as many, if not more, for no good reason whatsoever. You do realize Daenerys had this to say to Jon Snow in Season 7, right?
We both want to help people. We can only help them from a position of strength.
She was the breaker of chains. She was the killer of tyrants. She wanted to bring about a new and better world. She wanted to break the wheel and usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. She knew who her father was and wanted not to become him. And despite all of this, she destroys the entirety of King's Landing for no good reason, other than Dumb and Dumber's fucked up reasoning of they'll never see it coming. I'm not against Daenerys burning the city to the ground, but there has to be a legitimate reason for it. And it's like the writers went out of their way to make the idea of her burning the city to the ground absolutely ludicrous, because it's the only way the audience wouldn't see it coming. Dany had the battle won. She did it without many casualties and achieved her life's work, but Dumb and Dumber made her do something unforgivable and irredeemable that completely betrayed her character. I don't see how anyone can defend this episode. Try, by all means try. But I can't imagine the droves of fans who still love Daenerys Targaryen to have anything but burning contempt for this episode. I've known since season 5 that Dumb and Dumber were two of the worst writers working today. Two complete and utter hacks who place shock value above storytelling every time. But this proves that without a shadow of a doubt, Dan Weiss and David Benioff, Dumb and fucking Dumber, are two of the worst writers in the history of television. I've known this longer than most, but Star Wars, despite being raped by Rian Johnson, is about to get gang raped repeatedly by these two utter fucking retards. The idea that Disney and any other studio can reward these two for their bad writing is an extremely grim sign that the entertainment industry is only going to get worse. Fuck Disney, fuck Dumb and Dumber, and fuck Game of Thrones. Just one more episode for this nightmare to be over. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.
I have no right to ask this of any of you. Will you follow me? One last time.